family. Welcome to African Esquire TV. I'm your host, Tony Cherie. Something that I always feel uncomfortable with whenever I see the disparities in wealth among African people, particularly in countries that are ran by Africans and are majority African, I always feel uncomfortable with the romanticization of a certain class of the segment of the population, whereas the masses are suffering. So, for example, you might see movies and they depict the glorious life and depict all these nice, beautiful places that you can visit inside of an African country. You might see this and think, wow, the development in this country is amazing. And it makes you want to go and makes you want to participate inside of that segment of that society. But the ultimate issue, of course, is that reality is not the reality for the masses of African people. The masses of African people are suffering, even while there's a certain class of African people who might benefit from the system as it exists. This is the reality in every single country where African people are, even when we're not the majority. Even if you're a minority, there's always going to be a certain class of our segment of our population who gets to live a glorious life, who gets to be separate and far away from the issues that affect most of us. Whereas the masses of our people are struggling, and masses of our people are living a nightmare, and other people are living this dream life. These are things that I always feel uncomfortable with, particularly like in this current atmosphere where everyone's trying to glorify essentially certain segments of our experience and use that as a way to counter the narrative that all Africans are poor, all Africans are hungry. And I understand that. That's very important that we understand that that's not who we are, that we understand that we were a complete people before we ever encountered Europeans. It's important for us to understand that. But at the same time, it's also important for us not to get caught up inside of the system and the values that have been ingrained into us from the colonial system that we think are the things to aspire to. You know, we really believe that having individual achievements is what to aspire to, even while your collective community is falling to despair. These are things that obviously reinforce the system around us, because the system was created and founded on the fact that you're going to have a certain amount of people benefit while the masses suffer. So I'm going to use this example to talk about the issue I just talked about. This is in Nigeria. President Muhammadu Buhari, he's getting some criticism because he's taking a medical trip abroad before a doctor's strike inside of Nigeria. So let's go into this story. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari will travel to London for a routine medical checkup in 2 days before the country's doctors go on strike over unpaid salaries.
The nationwide strike declared by the National Association of Resident Doctors is taking its toll on patients and hospital management across the Federal Capital Territory, that's Abuja. But the doctors have described the current strike as being the last resort to get their demands met. Correspondent Jakar Disa reports.
Another round of strikes coming few months after a similar action. Hospitals admit they are now having to cut down on the number of patients they attend to as the resident doctors' strike enters its third day. Here at the National Hospital, our crew is not granted access to the wards, but a few patients are seen in and around the hospital. One of them is Mercy Sunday. She says her son's condition demands urgent attention.
I've not seen the doctor because the day I came, they told me that I should come another day, that I should collect the small card and go. So as I collect the small card, I did not come back the Wednesday, they say. So I see the condition, I have to be running. I'll be coming back.
The authorities here have devised means to keep work going, especially at the emergency ward, even though the absence of resident doctors greatly affects operations.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, Tayo Astrop is the hospital's spokesman. He calls for an immediate end to the strike in the interest of the patients.
It's our hope that this strike will be cut off as soon as possible so that there will be full complement of work. As I tell you, without the resident doctors in the hospital, there can be full complement of work because this supports their senior colleagues.
Among issues bothering the doctors are non-payment of salaries, non-recruitment of house officers, abolition of bench fees, non-payment of national minimum wage, and non-payment of insurance benefits to families of members who died in the line of duty. The striking doctors are themselves urging a quick end to the stalemate.
While he's consulting with doctors in London, millions of people in Africa's most populous country will be left without access to medical treatment from April 1st, when doctors will stop going to work. They're complaining about the non-payment of medical interns for months, demanding an upward review of hazard allowances and COVID-19 care incentives, according to a statement by the National Association of Resident Doctors on March 29th. Nigerians have for decades suffered from an adequately funded healthcare system. This is all of Africa, but they want to focus on Nigeria, or all of African people. We suffer from this collectively. Squalid clinics and hospitals, poorly paid and overworked healthcare workers who frequently move abroad for employment. This is an issue we talked about on this channel before. There are 8,178 medical doctors of Nigerian origin working in the UK, according to a data analysis on the UK Medical General Council's office. More than 50% increase from 2015. So you have the doctors of the country fleeing, and while some are left behind, the situation just gets worse and worse for those who actually stay. The exodus has worsened healthcare in a country that has one doctor for every 5,000 people. Could you imagine that? Of course, most of these people don't receive healthcare, but if they did, one doctor for every 5,000 people. Crazy. What type of president obviously would leave the masses of their people, the people who he supposedly represents, leave them in order to go and get healthcare that they could never get? Not only could they never get it, some of them can't get any healthcare beginning on April 1st because of the strike that's going to happen. What type of president would do that? Think about the criticisms that everyone had. If you were in the United States, you remember Ted Cruz left Texas whenever there was winter storms that basically left a lot of people without power, left a lot of them inside of houses that their pipes bursted. He had so much criticism, and it looks like his fan base is basically turned on him. Imagine that times 10. This is what this is. This is someone that does not even care enough to ensure that the people in his country are getting enough health care, and will go to London in order to enjoy the benefits that exist elsewhere. This is the situation inside of all colonized countries, obviously, though, because we understand that the fleeing of your country for medical treatment is something that's not unique. It's something that's not new. It only gets exacerbated when you have something like a COVID-19 happen, and only gets a microscope put on it. But this is the situation that exists whenever we as African people, we glorify the individuals and not the collective. President Muhammadu Buhari, he probably feels very justified in what he's doing. He probably feels that he's of more importance. He probably feels that he's not connected to the fact that his people are about to go, his doctors are about to go on strike. And he probably feels like his health is a priority for Nigeria. But we need leaders, and we need people who are going to represent our people, who actually feel that the plight of the everyday person, the plight of the masses, is actually their personal plight. That if I can't, if the people cannot enjoy a certain luxury, then I certainly will not partake inside of something, especially something inside of a country that has a direct link and a direct being the direct colonial power that actually put the country in the place where it is to begin with. But these are things that we have to criticize. These are things we have to digest. And there are things that the masses of the people are going to have to say enough is enough at some point. So those are my thoughts on this situation. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I will see you all in the next video. Hey family, this is Tierney Cherie. I'm here to make an announcement that I'm very, very excited to make. I'm excited because I really think this is something that is important for our people. Otherwise, I would not have devoted so much time and energy towards it. So I finished my first book, and the book title is Fostering False Identity, the Child Welfare System's Design of Social Control of the Black Family. Now, why is this book something that I think will be very important for our community? Well, number one, it's dealing with the system of white supremacy, particularly the way that the system has targeted our children. If you don't know, our children are literally our future. Without our children, we have no future. And so understand that the system is very crafty when figuring out what to derail first. And to me, it's no mistake that the system particularly went after the Black family. If you look at what happened whenever we were enslaved by this system, and continues to go after the Black family, continues to go after Black children, continues to try to villainize African parents. So for that, I wanted to particularly talk about this subject. Now, the other thing that the book will deal with is our African identities. Why is it that our African identities are a threat to the system? Why is it that whenever we want to identify ourselves as being African African, we get so much drawback inside of the Black community. I think a lot of us are not aware of the history of assimilationist thought inside of our community, this idea that we have to be close to white in order to be accepted. And so that's another subject that we delve into in this book. So I'm hoping that anyone who is, obviously, if you're a parent, a Black parent, and you really want to understand why it is that these systems are going after your children, I encourage you to read this book. I hope that it will arm you with a lot of knowledge and a lot of foresight, not just about how to protect your own children, but how to organize in your community, because that's really the purpose of the book, is to say that we have to organize among ourselves in order to protect ourselves from this white supremacist system. And then obviously, if you're an organizer in general, this is something that I think is important for you to read, because like I said, this is a subject in the Black community that we just don't discuss enough. Child welfare is not something that is going to get enough attention. People, obviously, will organize them around other causes, but this is one that is really important that I feel like we have to pay more attention to.